Yesterday, millions across the country gathered to protest the actions of Elon Musk and the Trump administration. Although the Trump administration has dismissed the protests, calling them fake outrages, I'm sure they're already feeling the heat with talks of Elon Musk stepping down from his position. These protests are just the beginning of what millennial and Gen Z voters will continue to do with their grassroots political movements. It is important to hold the current administration responsible for their actions of mass layoffs, ICE raids, dismantling the U.S. Department of Education, cuts on Social Security, Medicaid, etc., and much more. I mean, the list goes on. I hope to see this movement prevail, as it is time for the people to finally take charge.
We understand the problem. I'm here to give you the solution. The first thing we must remember is that our electeds work for us. We vote them into office. We pay their salaries. We decide who walks in that building at City Hall and at every level of government. Our government is by the people, for the people. Just this week, we saw the many defeat the money when a power-tripping billionaire failed to buy the Wisconsin Supreme Court seat. Money failed because Americans showed up and did their civic duty. They called, they emailed, they organized, and they got everybody they knew to the polls. This is the solution. We do our civic duty. We call, we email, we organize, and we can walk into that building and tell our electeds when they're doing a bad job at representing our interests. Our elected representatives take an oath to the Constitution, and when they betray their oath, it is our responsibility to hold them accountable and give them consequences. At the ballot box, in the courts, and every single day they walk our streets. We far outnumber the vocal few who spread hate and lies about what it means to be an American. When we raise our voice as loudly and consistently, we drown them out. We call and we email. We get comfortable using our voice. We can get on a first name basis with the staffers that work for us. We can go into that building every day so we can participate in our own governance. We organize and collaborate like we're doing here today. We meet our neighbors. We plug into advocacy groups. We use our professional and personal skills to take back our democracy.
So you're hearing that the hands-off April 5th protests yesterday were so peaceful and everything was great and there was no violence, no escalation, and that it was also predominantly white people, predominantly white women. Here's the thing. Here's the really important point. It is not that the people who were in attendance yesterday, right, the predominantly white people, the predominantly white women, are inherently more peaceful and law-abiding, and they just know how to do it, right? That's not the reality. It is because they were met with a different level of force, being none, a lack, as opposed to when movements are predominantly about and backed up by people of color, right? Queer people, especially black people, especially black women. They are met with a different level of force, not only by police, but by like random conservative militia groups that were showing up every single day at the BLM protests. There is a stark difference, not in the way in which the protesters are protesting, but a stark difference in the way in which power and force and violence, especially state sanctioned, is responding to the protests themselves. That has to be a very, very important distinction that we make, because this is not a failing of other movements. This is a failing of our police presence, of the militias, of the power and force and violent force therein. Ultimately, who gets to protest peacefully and who gets met with extreme and violent force is not due to the protesters themselves. It is far more a reflection of power and control rooted in racism. And it's horrific. And yesterday we saw the stark contrast between what it looks like to be a white body versus what it looks like to be a black body in public spaces where you are allowed to protest and talk about your humanity and your rights. We saw a difference. And again, it's not because of the protesters, it's because of the force in which they were met.
So apparently Saturday there were protests across America. Some were even across the globe in the UK and other places in Europe protesting Donald Trump's presidency. Now this here is a screen grab from New York. And there were hundreds and thousands of people protesting in New York, Boston. Hell, I was in Richmond this past weekend, and there was I was like, why is everybody honking their horns? I didn't know what they were protesting, but apparently they've been out there protesting old Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Now, now you're not really going to see too much of this being pushed on your FYP, but I will say, I was laughing at the fact that it's white people. It's white people out there protesting. Hey, you know what? On one end, I'm glad that y'all are out there protesting the motherfucker that y'all put in there. You know, you got buyer's remorse. I got it. Your gas prices didn't go down. Your groceries went up. Those eggs, the car price is about to go through the roof. You're getting fired from your good federal jobs and shit. You know, I mean, he was draining the swamp. That's what y'all voted for, right? But now y'all out there protesting because y'all it ain't even been 6 months yet. We ain't even made it seem y'all already mad. But I will say, you know what? Maybe this is some form of accountability for y'all, but hey, it is what it is. All I gotta say is, I know niggas ain't out there. They had veterans, even out here in Norfolk. In Norfolk, they had a big old protest, and they ain't nothing but federal workers and veterans out there. That motherfucker, they all white. But hey, this is y'all's job to fix white people, okay? Now we'll sit back. Hey, I'm gonna sit back. Hey, go, woo! Support y'all from the couch. But just know, we ain't bringing our asses out there, okay? Y'all made this problem. Y'all got to deal with it and y'all got to fix it. That's part of accountability, y'all right?
People who voted for Trump are one of two things. They're either a bad person or they're not smart. And I've riddled my brain over the past few months trying to think of like the secret third reason. Because making sweeping accusations about like half of the electorate feels like kind of a bitchy elitist thing to do. But I look at the severity of where we're at 3 months into this administration. Really, the two options are either you voted for this, you knew this was going to happen and you voted for this, or like you didn't know. But even if you don't know your history and you don't know the warning signs of fascism, there were other signs. So I still kind of think you're a bad person.
Happy Sunday, TikTok. Happy Sunday, you guys. Sunday fun day. This is a serious post. If there were nationwide protest, statewide, nationwide, global protests against Trump and Musk, how the hell did he get into office? Besides my Republican and Haitian father? Yeah, surprise, surprise. My dad's a Republican. He's been a Trump supporter since 2016. So besides my dad, which is a Haitian and a Republican, who the hell voted for this guy? I saw a video. It was a voiceover. It was a lady singing the 50 states. And the person stitched all the protests that happened in 50 states. So my question is, who voted for the guy besides my dad, who's clearly delusional? Since my dad is a Republican. Yeah, you racist white people, come to the front. Yeah, I told you you had the wrong one. I was just waiting. And you clearly didn't scroll down my TikTok page in order to get it. You didn't get it because y'all dumb. You racist white people, come on to the front. The next video is definitely for you. So if all these protests happen in these United States, 50, who voted for the guy? Everybody protest. I see older generation. I'm talking about old people out there with their walkers and their canes and their oxygen pumps protesting against Trump and Elon. My question is, who voted for the guy? How did he get into office besides my delusional dad? That's my question. You racist white people. Yeah, come to the front, racist white people. You racist white Trump supporters, come to the front. Because you didn't know. I guess because I'm a black girl, there's no way I could be a Republican. Yeah. Surprise, surprise. Am I proud of it? Absolutely not. But that's the next video. How did he get into office beside my dad being delusional and a Trump supporter? That's my question. How did he get into office if all 50 states protested against the guy? Riddle me that.
I've seen a bunch of posts on here from younger creators who were at the protests yesterday, and they were shocked, literally shocked, about the amount of elderly people that they saw at the protests. By elderly, I assume they meant boomers. So for them, I thought I'd put together some historical context about how the elderly came to be protesters. So you might remember a little thing called the Vietnam War, a year conflict that went from 1955 to 1975, right in the prime youth of the boomer generation. Brothers, husbands, boyfriends, friends, cousins were all drafted via a lottery system and were sent to war to potentially be killed in this heinous conflict, war that we didn't want and wasn't ours. I can so vividly remember Lottery Day, being with friends and praying that somebody I knew wasn't going to get drafted. And that's when the protests began. We didn't like what we were seeing. We didn't like the way the country was going. So we got out en masse. In fact, the protests associated with the Vietnam War were the largest scale protests in America up until that time. They took place on every college campus, in every city, and even in small suburban towns, because the war was pretty universally hated. It was an interesting time because the protests were really the intersection of a lot of movements that were happening at the time, not just the war, but civil rights, the beginnings of feminism, the beginnings of gay liberation, the beginnings of environmental consciousness. And they were all done in sit-ins and peaceful protests under the guise of peace and love, because that was how the protests were conducted in those days. Woodstock was another part of the protest, which just used music as a unifying factor to bring everybody together, because we were fighting not just for wars, but for individualism, the opportunity to do things a different way, because we didn't agree with the generation before us. And it was even the right for men to wear long hair. The point is, we didn't like what we saw and we protested for change. And we've been doing it ever since. Then came the women's rights movement. And up until that point in our lifetimes, the only thing that had been done to propel women forward was our mothers were allowed to have a checking account in their name finally. That was it. Thank you, Gloria Steinem, Betty Friedan, to all the women who took to the streets to protest for equal pay, equal job opportunities, for birth control, for abortion. I remember personally, I graduated college in a time when newspapers had jobs divided by females wanted and males wanted. If you were a woman, you couldn't apply for certain jobs. So did we affect some change? I like to think so. Did we do enough? Absolutely not. We're still fighting for women's rights, and I have been my whole life and will continue to claw my way through that as long as I live. But the next time you're at a protest and you see an elderly person standing next to you with a sign, you might want to say hi and ask them a story, because they've probably been doing it for 40 or 50 years. And they're doing it not just for their own rights, but for everyone's. On another note, you might rent the movie Hair. It'll give you some context.
Whoopsies. Trump tariffs based on massive error, says a conservative think tank. Now, let me preface this by saying if you are someone who works in finance, if you're someone who works in trade, if you're someone who understands math and numbers better than I do, I would love you to stitch this video and weigh in. However, here's basically what I've come to understand as a regular Joe Schmo, or Josephine Schmo, if you will, who knows not that much about tariffs or taxes. So while this looks like hieroglyphics to me, and probably most of you, again, weigh in if you know anything about this, this was the formula that the Trump administration had used to determine what percent they were going to tariff each country. And in plain language, it was that the reciprocal tariff was going to be equal to the trade deficit over imports. Don't worry, I simplified it further because I was still like, what? Surprise, surprise. This error actually impacts the likes of you and I, American buyers, more than it impacts any of the countries that are having this tariff placed upon them. The math error comes in when we're talking about how much the imported goods are going to cost the buyer. Remember, it was a conservative think tank of economists who went and checked the math of the Trump administration, essentially, and what they found was that the formula and the error in that formula caused the calculations to come out that the tariffs needed to be higher than they actually needed to be. So if they had caught their mistake and recalculated each of the formulas for each country, it would have turned out that the percentage of tariff needed to be much lower than it was. All this does for us is jack up the prices of all kinds of imports into the United States. So where we expected to see some inflation, we are now seeing astronomical price changes for the worst. Also, side note, the math that they used, the incorrect math, actually made the tariffs seem more impactful on paper than they actually are. But trust the process. He's playing chess, not checkers. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll be watching this a little bit more closely. If you are, again, as I said before, someone who works in finance trade, understands this at a whole other level that I don't, please go ahead and weigh in. I am by no means an expert here. All I have is Google and a hope and a dream.
Ladies and gentlemen, I like coming here with good news. It's too bad I never really do it. I'd like to read you what I just learned. Verbatim! Are you ready? Here we go. Bear with me. Books on the Holocaust, histories of feminism, civil rights, and racism, and Maya Angelou's famous autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, were among the nearly 400 volumes removed from the U.S. Naval Academy's library this week after Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's office ordered the removal. Well, I can't find a way to make that funny. No, I can't. There's absolutely nothing funny about that. They call these things DEI. That's why they're being removed. And they've only just begun. What say you? Leave a message in the comments. And have a wonderful day.
I've never talked about what I do for a living on this account. I'm going to today, but the reason I never talked about it is because I am a small business owner and I am a liberal content creator and I live in a very, very red city. And so my fear has always been that my videos could get out to the wrong person and they could basically destroy my business. The Facebook groups here are brutal. But I want to speak to this right now because I'm at serious risk of losing my business because of Trump's tariffs and what he's doing to the economy right now. To give you a little background on my company, in 2019, I opened an artificial grass synthetic turf store and I gained a good customer base. There are a lot of landscapers around here. There are a lot of homeowners who want synthetic turf for their yard. And so we were able to grow. And then in 2020, when the pandemic hit, a lot of people were staying home. A lot of people were doing home improvement projects, and we grew even more. I did not receive a PPP loan to help us grow. It was just organic, but at that time I couldn't get a PPP loan because I didn't have enough employees and we hadn't been open long enough. But anyhow, in 2021, I was able to expand into a full rock yard and landscape supply. Bought a huge property on 3.5 acres in a wonderful location, and we sell the turf, we sell rock, we sell boulders, we sell all kinds of landscape supply. And I've been so proud of that growth. I'm a woman in a male-dominated field. I have employees who I love dearly, and it's just been really wonderful. So here's where I might lose my business. Every single year, we have a really good November and December. As we're getting into the holidays, a lot of people are redoing their yards or updating their yards. And every year come January, it's super slow. But I always say it's a weird date that it just so happens to land on this date, but by January 20th, everything picks back up. But it just didn't as much as it should have. And I know a lot of other companies kind of felt that too. And, fair enough, new president, things kind of slow down while people decide where they're spending money. What I sell is obviously, not a necessary item. It's a more luxury item when it comes to artificial turf, especially. But we've been chugging along, doing what we can to try to drum up business. Unfortunately, in February, I did have to let one of my employees go. I simply could not afford to keep him any longer, and I felt terrible. It's the first person I've ever let go because of something like this. Anyhow, the artificial turf really is the bread and butter of my company. That's where we make our money. There's very, very slim margins on the rock part of the business and the ancillary materials that we sell. And I get my turf from a distributor. I am not a large enough company to be able to go direct to a manufacturer and bring in full shipping containers of product. And the distributor I use gets their product out of Vietnam. So with a 46% tariff on products coming from Vietnam, that will decimate me. People were already not spending. Now the stock market has gone to complete shit, and I'm going to have to raise the price of my turf that much. I can't maintain it. I have 3 employees who I love dearly. They have families, and I cannot imagine if I have to shut down and what that will do to them. It is killing me. Trump is posting to his Truth Social about big businesses. They'll be able to sustain this. And then another one today where he was talking about there's going to be pain. You have to hold on. Small businesses don't have 6 months, 1 year, 2 years to hold on while we are destroyed. Big corporations, sure, they might be able to last. He does not give a shit about if your small business fails. And so many will. And this will devastate small communities. Where I live, there are a ton of small business owners. We thrive on that. And so many people are going to lose that. And this is just devastating. And I can't imagine anybody who is still supporting this and is okay with this. I do fear that this will still get out to the wrong people in my town because they'll defend anything to the death, and they will insult me and say it's all my fault. They'll find a way to make this my fault, but it's not. And to every small business owner out there, I am so sorry that this is happening to you. I did not vote for this. So many people did not vote for this, and so many of us tried to warn you guys. We knew what was going to happen. We saw the writing on the wall. I'm just devastated, and I'm so sorry to everybody who could be absolutely destroyed by this.
Donald Trump's administration arrested and put in jail an MMA fighter from Australia. Okay? Okay? Listen carefully. This is important. This guy's not a fighter anymore. He's a coach now. And he was coming to the United States to teach a paid seminar. Okay? Paid seminar. Already done. He has the flyers, the advertising. He's got millions of fans on all of the social media and stuff. The guy's a public figure from Australia. Duly noted, right? He's getting off the plane. He's pulled aside. He's told there's something wrong with his visa. He's not allowed to speak to anyone. And he's taken to a prison, an actual federal prison, okay? And he's put in the regular prison garb. He's told nothing, okay? Now, here's the thing. MMA fighter, right? He's trying to figure out the lay of the land. He doesn't know what's what. He knows he's in a prison environment. The dude's smart enough, probably tangled with enough prison folk to understand the dynamics. He says he's just sitting in a corner trying to get the lay of the land. He knows it's lunchtime, right? He just grabs an apple because he's not going to deal with that right now. Very smart man. Very smart. Goes back to his bunk to find two guys stealing his stuff. They tell him they're getting their stuff. He says, no, that's my stuff. And then he lets them know that it's his stuff. And they leave crying. Right. Then he finds out one of the guys trying to steal his stuff is actually his bunkmate. You're my bitch now. Anyway, point is, another guy comes in and tells him, yeah, they do this to everybody, and they shouldn't have done it to you, because with ears like yours, cauliflower ear, they should have known you were a fighter. Then he says, I know you, because I know your videos. Why are you here? Then they came and got him, and told him he was being deported. So they put him back on a plane and sent him home. After he had to beat the shit out of two guys in prison to save his own ass. After he had to avoid bodily harm at the hands of the state, they just send him home. Bro, if you don't have a lawsuit going right the fuck now, you'd better. Because holy shit, you are owed. But he's just one. This is happening everywhere. Not to mention the fact that the man who was sent abroad with the Autism Speaks, tattoos, the autism awareness tattoos on his arm for his brother, they posted nude photos of him on television, being stripped down. Right. Those documentary videos that they were posting that lauded their achievement. Yeah, it also contained somebody who was completely innocent and deported by the administration accidentally. Do they care about broadcasting his naked ass on international television? Do they care? No. Right. Remember how they said it was just going to be criminal migrants? Weird how it's people from Australia, musicians from Venezuela, known artists from El Salvador. Weird how it's people who aren't connected in any way to any criminal operations. And there's no due process, so how can they prove who they are? The administration can lie if there's no due process. Because due process is literally you showing your ID. Without due process, they can pick up anyone at any time and lie about it. And there's not one fucking thing anybody can do to stop it if they don't know where you've gone. Think about how many people they picked up who don't have families to look for them. How many innocent people are rotting in a foreign prison right now? Sold to El Salvador, who aren't even from there. $20,000 a head. Sold. You could just as easily be one of them. Piss them off or be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and somebody's going to be desperately looking for you, and you're going to be the one begging for your mother or tangling with gang members in a prison situation. Are you an MMA fighter? No. So be careful. The things you allow, the things you write off in your mind, those slippery slopes we go down where we say, well, he kind of deserved it. Right. What happens when someone comes along who doesn't? Due process makes sure that no innocent person gets hurt. Due process makes sure that no innocent person suffers. So why would they be getting rid of due process? if they don't intend to hurt the innocent.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what do you think about this whole mess. This administration is doing a lot stuff very, very wrong. It's very sad that we have to deal with this for 4 years. It is crazy, unbelievably crazy.